Well, hey, welcome everyone. Today is the 15th. The 15th
The Ides of March.
The Ides of March. Who knows? It's so warm out. I think it's like springtime out, actually. Anyway, tonight we did have planned for you our buddies at Drewtech, Drew Technologies. Unfortunately, out in Michigan, right before we went on, I got a call from Mike Bodish and crew that they were having severe hailstorms and possibly tornadoes. So they had tornado watch. So they were getting out of their building. So unfortunately tonight, if you tuned in to speak about J2534 or programming or anything with their tool, we're going to have to move that to a different month. We're going to yak about it a little bit here tonight and some other subjects, but with that said, let me tell you who else we have potentially coming on. We have a couple other scan tool manufacturers coming on. We're going to get the guy who made this machine here, EMS. We'll talk about this because we have a question from one of the board members on a P0420 and the new software that they have out for this machine that shows you pre and post CAT. And we'll yak about a whole bunch of things, including, we like to give ourselves kudos here, this coil on plug tester that we gave the TST Technician's Choice Award to, this little logo right here, right next to the Motor Top 20 Award. So we're pretty happy that GTC is displaying our Technician's Choice Award. And by the way, guys, you will not be disappointed if you buy this tool. It really works very, very well. So a plug for them, and thank you to them.
And a good value, by the way.
Great value.
Yes.
Very good. So guys, let's bring up J2534. Who is reflashing here and who's not? Is anyone here not reflashed?
We are not.
I've reflashed.
I reflash.
So we
You
got
don't
3 and
reflash now?
3. 3 and 3. Now, you know, the factory tools, in fact, I'll bring up something my son, Craig, the guy behind the camera, had done here, New World Flashing. Now, you know, there are some very, very good tools that make life a lot easier than just doing J2534. Now, let me say that. You probably all know the Cardac, the Cardac M. Great tool. You know, if you own the Toyota TechStream software, well, obviously, it's seamless. It works just like the factory stuff because it is the factory tool and it's an approved factory interface. So it works easy. Now, if you're talking about doing a Ford IDS versus using the J2534, the process is more difficult. Not impossible, but difficult.
I don't think, if you don't mind me interrupting, I don't think the OEMs particularly want to make it very easy to reflash using J2534. I don't think it's because they have a nefarious plot, but that means they have to pay software engineers more money to come up with new and additional software. So like reflashing Ford using the J software, it looks like the IDS software, but the way it works is much different because it's not an IDS.
Yes, it's
so,
not seamless.
and it's just like
That's true of all of these companies.
Yeah, BMW or Volvo.
They don't want to spend extra money to write software for, you know, when they already have it.
And it's just not, a market in the aftermarket for it right now, anyhow. So
when BMW did not have their ISIS system, the J-Box was slow but virtually identical to what the factory tool was.
and as people look at the boom mic, it's not a camera.
And, sorry. And I was just wondering if that mic was picking up your voice from behind.
No, it is. I could see
Okay. When they went to the new system, then that transparency didn't exist anymore, and for them, you have to buy like a $4,500, it's called an ICOM unit, their own J-Box effectively, to make it really seamless like the factory. So it's a lot of money, and somebody has to really be devoted to doing a lot of those
And Pierre,
parts.
to my understanding, that'll be changing. That's why the Drewtech M-Box here
Right.
is a bit different because now, rather than J2534 standard, the Germans are coming up with a new
They got their
ISO
own-
standard
They got their new standard, right?
led by your favorite company, BMW. They actually are going to, you know, change it. Well, we know if you're on a 7 Series BMW and you're reprogramming with the factory tool, it is a 24-hour experience.
Well, it was. I think it's getting better as they become more efficient. But if you tried to do it with a J-box, you know, you better schedule that car for most of a week.
Yeah, it just wouldn't
It's
be able to
very
do it.
slow. It's just too. They are data-hungry monsters. Those cars.
Right, now that's the reason for the change, I understand, this new ISO spec.
Yes, to just get the data through it.
Or you can buy a great tool like AutoLogic that we've used in
Yep.
our scan tool shootouts, just one of the good tools, that you can go in and do individual modules quite easily.
Well, they're making Mongoose cables now for Land Rover and Jaguar.
Yes, they're
And-
actually right here. They are the OEM diagnostic for Toyota, Jaguar, Land Rover, BMW, and Volvo.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like, we know that a Toyota Tech Stream with a Mongoose cable is the same thing as a Toyota Tech Stream with a J-box or whatever.
Right.
But the BMW factory tool through a J-box is a lot different than a BMW factory tool. So I have never seen Jaguar or Land Rover, but I imagine that's probably like that.
Well, that's the Ford IDS software, is what they were using, and to my understanding, I haven't used it with the J-box. To my understanding, and if anyone out there has used it, let me know. It is identical to the IDS software. The only difference is you're using the J-box. You're not using the, I can't think of the name of the company, Teradyne, the Teradyne box. Same one that Honda used for years. That's the only difference. And by the way, an update from Joey Scans out there in Kansas, they have out, and my buddy Tom Rake from Napa, there is a brand new box out, a brand new J2534 interface box out now from Ford Motor Company. And Ford is going to be doing other things with their software. They're one of the companies that I think, in my opinion, has some of the best software, because you can do everything from relative compression by a turn of the key to, if it has a pressure transducer on the fuel rail, you can do fuel per cylinder, hydrocarbon leak,
Stuff's all
misfire, and it's easy as pie. It's probably one of the better ones out there. When I just was doing a Toyota hybrid class and showing them how to look for cylinder misfire or do relative compression on the Toyota software, is very, very crude compared to what Ford does with theirs. You know, another tool that's working on putting that in generically is Bernie's tool, the eScan, and Bernie and Neil, the ATS, Automotive Test Solutions. Let's call it the Bernie tool. But he's thinking about putting that in generically to where when you crank this car over, you won't know what cylinder's weak, because you don't have the fire in order.
But you'll know you have a weak one,
But you know you
or
got a
they're
weak-
all the same.
And maybe you won't throw the mass airflow sensor at the car or the oxygen sensor.
Right.
You'll look for a mechanical condition, like the days of the big box scope.
Right.
So what's your thought out there? Do we have any questions or comments, or people tell me to shut their hay up? I can use to shut up.
Don't have that, but we were talking about before the IDS, whether it's feasible to sell reflashing as a service. If a car rolls in, you see if it needs a software update, and then you sell the software update, whether or not the customer really came in for a complaint or not.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the old days of the Snap-on scanner being out, or OTC, when you read the MemCal. Remember that? Remember when you had your little brick?
Right.
And then you looked up in the book and it said, oh, PROM or MemCal update. And if you exhibit a symptom based off that thing saying it needs that, just like a TSB, if you are exhibiting a stumble, poor mileage, whatever.
Hesitation
transmission,
when cold, doesn't shift right under some circumstances.
then I would do it.
Whatever.
I would look. I would look, and if you test drive the car as part of your diagnostics, I would do that, and I would highly recommend it to the customer.
Now, you know, I've heard stuff like 6 out of 10 Fords that roll in the shop need a reflash. Now, Ford
Yes.
comes in, dropped off for an oil change. No complaint or anything, just wants an oil change, maybe a tire rotation, but there may be a TSB for a reflash. Is it worth selling, do you think?
I think what you have to do is ask the customer if it's doing any of those things, because some customers may not notice. If they say, oh yeah, I thought that was normal, you can say, well, here's a TSB, and this TSB is supposed to fix this problem, supposed to being the operative words, and you know, are you interested in it? You have to charge for it. But if they say no, the car runs perfectly, I think
You better leave all that
you
alone.
better leave it alone. Right. On the other hand, just telling people that there's a Reflash with the newest and the greatest, you might have people who say, I always need to have my car up to date. And they may go for it. But see, they've gone for it.
Well, nowadays, isn't this just like Windows, updating?
Yeah, there you go. It
Software?
updates itself automatically.
And I think consumers are more aware that they need an update because there may be a security issue on their home computer.
Yeah.
Something may not work as it was designed. And this is the same on cars.
Yeah.
Let's talk about eCell. Remember eCell?
Right.
eCell was a little battery on a computer board.
We also had them on dashboards, by the
That's
way.
right. Because they made
On
things
clusters.
right. They made things run a certain way, didn't they?
Right, yeah.
Then it expired.
Yeah.
Well, what took the place of that? Is these reprogramming files.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. Good companies like Drewtech, obviously, like Ease, like Auto Ingenuity, everyone is getting into programming. I think if you're not doing it out there as a repair shop or technician, you're leaving money on the road.
Well,
Someone else is going to get it.
I want to play devil's advocate, because I'd say in my shop, to get rid of a check engine light, yeah,
Can't breathe. I'm
we have a
sorry.
sick president
Thanks. No drugs.
that, you know, maybe 1 out of 100 cars that need a repair are legitimately fixed by a Reflash. That's a very low number. That's 1% of your
But
business.
what if it's not fixed by a Reflash and it just makes it a little better? What if it's just keeping it up to accounting for wear or accounting for...
Oh, you mean like the P0420 on Volkswagens or Infiniti?
Nissans, yeah.
Nissans that you're not going to fix unless you do.
So that the point there is, I think, getting back to it. You have to show the customer the service bulletin and show them that that's what it's for and let them decide whether they want it or not.
Well, I
Also
think,
on a Honda Accord.
And Honda Accord, that's right, and Honda Civic.
Well, the thing is, I don't think you should preemptively reflash unless you have a symptom, because you do not know what that reflash was meant to correct.
You don't know what the other effects
You know, like John Anello called it automotive menopause. Like, oh, car hit 75,000, all of a sudden decides to do something. Well, not really. The car, something wore down or some from regular use.
and the programming didn't compensate fully.
Yes,
Now
and
they've
so
updated the programming to either compensate or to kind of sidestep the problem somehow.
yeah, it's like Hyundai Accents 08, 09s. I don't know about the 2010s, but customer will never complain about a misfire, but you have a check engine light for a misfire. And it's hard to get the OE plugs for it. And we thought, oh, you know, we put aftermarket spark plugs in it because that's what WorldPack had. We got bit, we should have put the right plugs in. And I found out it needed a reflash. So, okay, I'm going to do this first before I waste the spark plugs on it. And the reflash got rid of the check engine light.
Changed the
but-
parameters.
Yes,
That's what it did.
but that check engine light didn't come at 30,000 miles, didn't come at 50,000 miles. It came at, you know, almost 100,000 miles. So it has very much to do with just the conditions changing. The car gets older and used and parts wear. So like on the MDI, Reflash GM, you see that they will warn you, fuel mileage will be affected. It's meant they have updates for everything, several, 3 or 4 updates.
You have to tell that to the customer. The customer has to be made fully aware. I would say you have to A,
does the
give them
dealer-
a copy of the TSB, and B, staple a
Yeah.
copy of that TSB to the repair order.
I think customers
You might have
trust
to explain it to them too.
Yeah.
customers trust us. You know, it's like you trust a dentist to tell you what you should have done with your teeth. So I think a J tool is another tool in your box. You use it when you need it. I just don't like when people pretend that we can use the tool to find new profit-making opportunities. I mean, you know, it shouldn't be any more something you look for profit any more than any other tool. You just have it to fix a problem. You make money for fixing the problem. You're not like necessarily looking for problems that aren't really there with it.
Well, you know, another good thing is this Drewtech Technologies thing called, I think it's called the toolbox. I happen to sit on a webcast that they have, and I'm looking at some beta software they have for the toolbox. It's a free app. It's something that they have if you're a Drewtech customer, and it'll give you a lot of different things like we're speaking about, little pitfalls, little problems, what to do. And you may want to go to the Drew Technologies website.
It will rewrite VIN numbers
Yeah.
for some cars too.
Rewrite VIN numbers?
Yeah, like if you put in a used
ones
PCM.
come out,
Oh, I
especially
see.
in inspection programs, or
Right.
look at the one we got on that Caravan that time.
Well, we had a 2006 Caravan, I think, and it had a check engine light, but it's because one figure on its VIN number disappeared,
Disappeared.
and he had to rewrite the VIN number for it to work.
And by the way, that
It
was
lost its
something
mind.
Chrysler knew. And they were saying only the DRB3 on that one.
Well, but
Which
that's
was wrong. It was the
WeTech.
StarScan that would be the only one to do it, but we did it with the Drewtech.
and what was it? The Drewtech didn't do that one because that vehicle had CAN. Drewtech is working on the program to work on CAN.
Oh, then which one did that?
Factory tool.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
Right.
because I called up Mr. Bodish about that actually,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
so
Caravan.
they are working on it. It is coming out, but it's just not out yet. That particular program.
That's right. I got that.
I
And all
think
of that, by the way, just goes to show that you really have to have multiple tools. Just like Craig was saying, it's another tool in your toolbox, but you need multiple tools in your toolbox.
And you need to network with people,
And-
don't you?
It's a good idea to have a relationship, a professional lending or sharing a relationship with other shops where you can all be strong in one area or two or whatever areas, but you can share those tools so you can all take care of your customers' problems.
well,
Be professional about it. By the way, that works with consulting too. I know a lot of people in the industry seem to think that they don't get along with their other shops in the area. They want to badmouth them or whatever. But what I've found is, if you went to a doctor or a lawyer and they said, "I need to consult," you won't think less of them. You think more of them.
Yeah. So they don't cut you open or at the wrong time.
Yeah.
The wrong
I think customers would understand today that cars are extremely complicated, they're very sophisticated, and there's a lot of information, and they don't think less of us for having to consult or wanting to consult with some other professional. They think better of us. They know that we are doing whatever we need to do to give them the best possible service. And part of that is loaning or sharing tools. I know there's a lot of shops that are in our TST group that either buy tools together and share them, or consult with each other before they buy tools, so there won't be any overlap, and then they have a lending agreement back and forth.
Yeah, which is a great
No.
idea.
but like you're saying about
Can we all
being,
get along?
We can, yeah, we can try.
you're saying about being professional. I think that's the biggest thing Reflashing offers, is that you could do something that only the dealer does.
Right.
And, like I reflashed an 09 BMW X5, and it's not like I made killer money on that job, but it's a four-wheel brake job I got after that. It's where I made that money.
That's the other thing. Customers, if there's a lot of things you can't do on their car, eventually they decide maybe you're not worth going to.
Exactly.
Yes.
Where if you can do almost everything on their car, and there may be a couple of exceptions, there are things the dealer can't do on their car.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And as long as you can service most of their needs, then they're going to make you the number one source.
That's correct.
Because I can't say I like doing New York State inspections,
Now, you don't make money on
but
it.
I have to.
Yeah, that's a good way. Inspection programs, if you do them right, they'll make money in the long run. But sometimes they're annoying. I recall running a shop, where people would come in and for a measly amount, you can't get your labor rate. Like some states you can get your labor rate, here you can't. And they're interrupting your shop or your process, but if you don't do that, you're not going to get that brake job. You're not going to get that, drivability issue. And that's
Yeah.
where the money is.
Or even just a service, even just an oil change.
Well, it's like in New York, because not everyone here, we're all New York, besides Rich, but in New York, the inspection's $21 without sales tax. You have to buy your own machine. You have to buy the sticker, which is like $5 or $6, and every time you run an inspection, there's a fee through the machine.
Two phone calls.
Well, phone calls plus, they actually just, not only your phone charge, you have a phone line now you're paying for, and ink for the printer and paper and all that, but also you have, they send you a bill in the mail. Like, you've done 40 inspections, well, here's a $20 bill. So maybe they tack on another 50 cents per transaction. So you're walking away with a big $11, putting a car in the air, you're taking a wheel off, taking the liability if the guy
you're
didn't
looking
sand the
at-
rim down or something. You're taking the liability if it's a state inspector and something wasn't 100%, or I've called up the DMV and they don't know fully what the regulations are, so there's gray areas and stuff, and it's ridiculous.
I would say at that point, you really have to go by what's in the machine. If the machine says this is it, that's what you go by.
Yeah, just go by the book.
Just go by the one in the machine.
All right, well, you know, like,
But if it's a question beyond that, that's tough.
you know, like well, there's things like where ball joints don't fall under inspection criteria and stuff like
Right,
that.
in our
But
Sure
but they
Anymore. They used to.
Sure they do. Suspension.
Well, suspension, right. If something's
No.
loose, then you fail it for a suspension
Suspension.
problem.
no. Suspension,
Yeah.
it has to not be connected to the vehicle. The shocks could be totally blown.
Yeah, shocks are not.
As long as they're not broken.
They're not broken.
Oh, right.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Some of the rulings are a little crazy, but in all states.
I'm saying if you did 100% legal, you couldn't. It's like unless it's not connected to the car, you can't fail.
Correct, so we don't get into a big inspection thing. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
There on the web?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you, guys.
We're gonna
Saved
go to
it
a
from
few questions,
inspection.
guys. What has been your experience when you inform the customer about reflash TSBs by asking him for the presence of the symptoms the reflash is supposed to correct? So does anyone have any experience doing that?
Well, years back, but again, it was totally different ballgame back then.
I do.
That's a no.
Okay, Pierre.
I've had a couple of BMWs that have had, now, BMW had some issues, every European manufacturer has had issues with what I'll call a PCV valve, even though everybody calls
Crankcase
it something,
ventilation valve.
crankcase pressure control garbage. But PCV is better, easier to say. And there have been some reflashes that were designed to make the vehicle a little less sensitive to its inherent weaknesses in that PCV system. And usually it only comes in conjunction with a blown PCV valve. So technically, yes, you could just put a PCV valve in and fix whatever vacuum leaks you're finding along the way and not reflash. But I've mentioned it anytime I've done that service and that update was available. And I don't think 5% of them went for it, but the fact is I offered it. And as long as I've offered it, if there is a problem afterwards, if there's a little hesitation, which the customer never noticed before, but they notice it now,
They're gonna be on you.
they would be on me, but now that I told them they could do the reflash, it's not on me anymore, is it?
It's on that
It's on
mystery.
them. So, and and I document all of that.
Now,
But
oh,
my feeling on that would be good because now you have a problem that, like you were saying before, Craig, I agree, flashing when you have a problem.
And that's a real problem.
And to look
Yes.
to see, like Neil was saying with a P420, look to see if there's a flash that's gonna fix that.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, like Pierre said, okay, well now I had hesitation, I didn't notice. Now you can say, well, I think the flash that you didn't want before should take care of that.
Right.
Now, they brought it up, trying to
Right.
sell them something they're not complaining about in this day and age. I know G thinks you gotta go for it, but it just doesn't seem, it's, I don't know.
Hard to tell.
I choose.
yeah, I guess it's
I-
tighter without running a shop. I'm going by years ago.
Right.
It's 12, 13 years ago. But when I would go out there and tell someone, they needed a GM or whatever, a MEMCAL or a PROM update, and I would look to see, and I was pretty lucky. Most of those things would work good. I never had a complaint from a customer. And I would say out of 10 people I approached, when I showed them that TSB,
They go for it.
I'd
It's-
say,
well,
the high majority.
Yeah.
It's, I don't know, like, but also, because back in the day, it was gas station, last shops at the gas station in front, and they rolled in. The gas attendant heard the brakes squeaky and checked the oil. Oh, get it over here for work. And the guy would jack it up right there, take the rotor off, lathe it, pads. And so everything was cheaper then too. So like,
Yeah, it's
I'm not
You
sure
know-
it was cheaper relatively. Actually, I'm not sure about that. It was cheaper in real terms.
About 93 bucks an hour I was getting. Look how long ago that was.
Yeah.
10, 12 years
well,
ago.
that's what it takes to get G to touch your car. Now, does it? But no. But that being said, like, You know, I charge $200 for a reflash. So someone comes in for the $36 oil change, you know, they're going to be insulted if you upsell them the reflash. I'd rather show them
you're
their
probably right.
fluids and
I
get the
know it's
tranny
different.
flush and this and that.
I know it's different,
You
but
know.
I would say look and print out at least. You know, All Data has so much good information, and the OE sites are available. And by the way, let's give a big plug to Identifix. I don't know if you guys have been looking at Identifix lately. My God, it is absolutely amazing. Now you have the OE information for GM, Ford, Chrysler, I think Honda and Toyota.
6 of them.
And it's all
Nissan.
part of the standard Identifix fee, right?
The fee went up a little bit,
But
but
big
again,
It's part of
deal.
the standard fee.
yes.
How can you go wrong? I mean, it is ungodly. This is something that, you know, I wished I was in the business and they had that. Because you have all the stuff you could sell through Identifix, and now you got all the information.
They
It's
got,
something that is very important.
yeah, they got
to-
labor guides, they have wiring diagrams. It's getting real good.
You know something? It may be down the road. We did something here, a bunch of us. Remember when that one guy came in, we won't mention names, but we beta tested factory information, how it was gonna look like. Remember they were gonna take all the OE information and put it in one thing? This is what Identifix has. It's pretty damn neat. So if you don't use Identifix, or you do, maybe you look through it good enough. Really good.
We have a thought from an attendee. It says, just thought of one. A
Oh,
question.
thank you. Thank God.
We like the questions.
On a Ford engine with an intake manifold runner control, and you have lean codes, and it checks out that there are air leaks at the runner control bearings, what are the options for repair?
Oh, you just came across that, didn't you?
New manifold, right?
The
You
manifold.
mean on the Volkswagen?
No, what's the one you're waiting for that manifold? The
Oh, I
Kia?
mean the Hyundai?
The Hyundai.
Yeah. No, you have to get a whole manifold.
Whole
Same
manifold.
thing. There's nothing-
Yeah.
What are you gonna do with
You
those
can't,
when
they
you
don't
wear
have
out?
bearings
Yeah, you
replaceable
can't-
on any of those.
Yeah, you can't
They
replace
don't really
them.
have bearings.
I
They
mean,
just made
It's
it
a,
into
it's a bushing.
it's a bearing. It's in the plastic. It's
Yeah, it's garbage.
Yeah,
You know, you can't put RTV around it because it
no,
moves.
it moves.
right.
Yeah,
So I
it's-
personally don't know of anything. Maybe Dorman's.
I will say this:
Maybe Dorman's or one of those has. I'll just grab that. Someone else.
any of those things,
Who knows?
if
Maybe
you can
it's,
reach the
350.
bearings, not while it's worn out already, it's too late.
That's-
Right.
I like to use a Teflon dry lubricant for plastic bearings like that, and plastic pieces in a plastic manifold or whatever, because nothing sticks to it, it doesn't attract dirt that's gonna grind it up, and it's a lubricant and it'll make things like that last longer. But if it gets, which what usually happens is it gets PCV gases, carbon, crap in it, and that stuff gets hard, and then it starts to cut the bearing up.
Yeah, it's nothing
And
you
you're
can do
done.
that I know.
Once it's
I'm
worn
not-
out, it's worn
Yeah,
out.
once it's worn out, you're done.
But maybe someone out there knows. I know Dorman's and quite a few of these companies have these little fix-it.
I haven't seen them
Type
for that
things,
yet,
but-
but they do have a lot of.
Yeah,
I don't think
companies
you,
out
I don't
When
think
you
you
go-
can take those manifolds apart.
I've never seen anything like that.
When you
You
see
might
one
take it
the other
apart,
day,
but you never fix them.
they used the smoke machine. You know, the smoke was to smoke this intake manifold. And when what's his name, Alex
Alex.
showed me, I was like, Alex,
Did they break it?
I don't think you can do anything. It's impossible.
Oh, we tried, we tinkered with it, but to no avail.
So sorry, couldn't answer your question.
We're having a side conversation in the middle of a live webcast. Okay.
Okay.
Just going back to the IDS, I have read the calibration files downloaded on demand for the vehicle. That does not work in Australia. Is anyone familiar with this?
Oh, boy.
We got a lot of
There's a guy from
Australian.
Australia.
We have a lot of
Lately, we have a
Australian
lot of people
TST.
from Australia. Gil down there, who was in my class years back.
No, I would have no
some good
idea
guys.
about
Welcome,
that.
Australia.
I would say to go to IATN because there's quite a few Australians that are on there that seem quite knowledgeable on Fords. I don't know them personally, but if you put something like that into IATN, I think you will, they will get the answer they're looking for.
So what was it? The files from the
The
IDS.
files from the IDS are good for the US cars, but not for the Australian cars,
Well, sometimes even
Because everything's
Canada has the same problem.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I
Well, it's
don't.
Different,
They have different emission laws.
Emissions.
Yeah, everything's different.
You know?
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know.
It's different.
Now, there's
Sorry.
a different Rich has a
A
question.
different rich.
Maybe a rich.
Excuse my dealership only mentality, but are you saying that independent shops now have the ability to flash modules of all types, even?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
No,
Most.
depends.
It
Depends.
depends. It depends.
Because
yeah.
some like let's say not Ford. Chrysler, you can only do PCMs and TCMs.
Correct.
Right, they're not letting
So-
you go into the other modules.
So it's only what the government makes it do.
No, it's what the manufacturer decides to. BMW decided it was too expensive to write all new software, and so they gave you everything except keys.
Keys. Well, that's because
Well,
everyone.
they- locksmith deal.
That you had to be bonded and go through that whole locksmith
Right.
thing.
And I think they're all like that.
Yeah, they're all,
And
but
tell
that's,
them-
you know, you understand, they don't want their cars being stolen.
To our dealer friend, a good site to go to is nastf.org. That's nastf.org.
National
You'll see-
Automotive Service Task Force.
You'll see all the OE sites there, and you'll see you can do just about everything. And you can buy every factory tool.
And speaking of reprogramming, if you go to the reprogramming info, it's not like it's like 10 pages long. It's like 3 paragraphs, and they'll give you a lot of detail. This is exactly what this OEM will allow you to do. This is exactly what you need to run the program.
That's right.
And it's pretty easy to read. It's very
So
well done.
Sometimes you can't use Windows 7 64-bit.
They'll tell
They'll
you.
give you requirements on whatever.
Operating system, computer speed,
Everything.
network speed, Java or whatever other software has to be in the computer, and what version of that.
Ah.
They may say Sun Microsystems Java, not
I was just gonna say that, the Javas will drive you crazy.
Javas will drive you crazy.
That is key.
But as long as you follow that like a checklist, take care of every item, it's gonna
In
work.
fact, Craig, you wrote a good article on that. I know it was in the TST newsletter, where you went down and maybe you even did it in the other magazine.
Yeah, Automotive Service Professional.
Okay.
Should
And
read
there
it.
as well, where you're going down the list of, here's the things you gotta check off. It's a little different than if I have the IDS, or if I have the Star Mobile, or, Star Scan. Well, guess what? It's different because you're doing it now from a different device that
With a
they
different
didn't
operating
really
system.
write the program for. Now we can get on a whole other thing, it seems, that just pops into my head, speaking about NASDF, the Right to Repair Act. Now, there's a lot of different opinions out there.
Everybody's
Some
got an
people-
opinion.
There's some people now that are saying, oh, we need the government to intervene. Well, our government barely can run itself, right? Want to give them more things to do?
Jerry's on his soapbox.
Not a
Watch out.
political statement, but having been on the NASDF board, and I gotta say, the right to repair in the beginning, I was really on the side until you look at, if you force a government, a car company through the government to do something, you better be careful what you're wishing for or forcing them to do. It is only for OBD2 emission stuff that the government can say, okay, we'll make it a law, you gotta give them that. Well, hey, I like the way it is now. I can get all the Toyota stuff, the first company to come to the aftermarket and give you everything. GM, Ford and everyone, you can buy the tools, you can get the information. The best, Hyundai, Kia, free.
Free. And it works easy.
And it's easy. It's
Easy.
easy even to use with a J box to do. Great setup. So that's my opinion on that. What's yours?
The thing that scares me is that all the sponsors for the bill are part companies, and part of the written legislation is that anything they could use to fix a car would become open source information. So then you'd get like OE stuff, but built in China, but they'll try to sell to you as the OE part, and
Well, didn't we get that for years? You know what I mean by that? An aftermarket company, won't mention names, takes an ignition coil for argument's sake. And I got some great examples, okay? Where this coil was supposed to be better because it had its special blue color on the outside or windings or whatever.
Came in good bubble wrap.
And guess what? Because it was different resistance, it caused a problem with the vehicle. It caused emissions. Or how about some of those plugs? The Spitfire. What they'll do in the vehicle.
Split fire, right? Yeah, I remember those. They misfired. They weren't
misfired.
split fires. They were misfires.
So guess what? I mean, there's still people out there. John had one not that long ago on a vehicle. Guy was racking his brains, shutting a Chrysler down. I seen the same thing.
And it was a coil pack.
It was the small
Oh, it was
plugs.
the plug itself.
Plugs and the coils. Yeah.
Right.
And
Overdriving the coils.
Yep, you overdrive them, you run into a problem. So these are things that, hey, the OEs pay for all the R&D. You pay for all the research and development.
You don't want to give it away.
You can't give the stuff away. I wouldn't want to give away my intellectual property for free. nor would anyone else. You don't want to give your work away for free.
No.
So how can we ask these
Well,
companies?
look
to
at
do it?
music. Ever since they started music, when's the last time a good album was made?
That's right.
Maybe Foo Fighters,
I
but
was just going to say, thank God for David Grohl and Foo Fighters. The rest of the stuff is garbage.
one TST member just fixed an '03 BMW with the same exact issue you had, Pierre.
Okay,
With the Reflash, the customer's real happy.
that's good.
Very good.
Another said, thank you for turning us on to Identifix. They heard about it in a roundtable a few months ago, and
Oh,
now
well, we're
he
more
says
than
that's all
glad
he
to
needs.
Yeah. No.
Well,
That's
I
what
don't
he
know about
said.
that, but okay.
Way to go. Let me tell you one pitfall. You know, Identifix is good, and thank you. We're more than glad to give information out. That's what this is about.
Absolutely.
Also, IATN. Now, here's the problem. IATN, there's a lot of good guys on there, and there's a lot of guys that are not so good. Now, same, when you look at Identifix, you gotta look at it carefully. When you think you have this problem, and the fix is to change the thermostat, for argument's sake, and you throw this thermostat and it don't fix it, okay, that's a small part. Ain't gonna worry too much, right? But if they tell you, you know, 20 fixes with a PCM, and the PCM's $1,300 on this car, and you put it in, it don't work, shame on you. It's test, not guess.
That's right.
That's the thing we gotta worry about.
Yeah, and some of it is also setting, besides the testing, which you really should be aggressively testing.
And they
testing
tell you to do that.
everything.
They tell you to do
But
it.
the other thing is, whenever you do these things, you know, this is really a business subject more, but you really have to set customer expectations. You have to say, you know, this is what the service bulletin says, and, you know, this is what's supposed to happen, and you can't personally stand behind it unless you have personal experience that it has fixed it in the past for this exact same circumstance. You know, you have to, how do you speak to your customers?
You know, what I say, whenever something like that, like if you have a misfire and they do the plugs yet or the fuel filter, I always say you gotta take the vitamin C before you go to the doctor. So let me do the tune-up, let me do the fuel filter,
Very good, yeah.
let me do the thermostat, and then if it doesn't work, then I'll charge you for a diag, and then I'm not worrying about if something obvious is eluding me.
Right,
Any
So
other questions? Because Neil's gonna have a question for me in a second.
yeah.
yeah, we
Almost
have. I worked on 2 Hyundai Sonatas last week. And I must say, does anybody else find the description of SRS locations to be hard to figure out if they speak of driver's side airbag or driver's side airbag not staying in seat or in wheel unless you figure it out on your own?
They're dealing with it on the wrong side of the road, is that it? What are they doing?
I'm not quite sure. I do know, so if you look at the factory Hyundai stuff, it's not the most explicit stuff. And that's
No,
from
it's
the,
not.
and that's from like that's what the dealer has.
Do they drive on the left side of the road in Korea? I think they do,
Right,
right?
they do.
So
Yes,
they might
because
not
they're
they might not
occupied by
be
us.
reversing their driver's side, passenger side for the U.S. market on everything.
No, they drive. They're like us. They drive.
Oh, are they like us?
I think they're like
Because
us.
Japan and
Japan
China
is
are not.
But South Korea is occupied by the United States.
So is Japan.
True. I don't know.
I think they're on the opposite side of the road.
I wouldn't know, so.
I think-
Are they on the
I
opposite?
think so.
The bottom line is, I've seen that with other cars. If you got to watch what driver's side and passenger side means.
Yes, check
And
the other side. That's
and
all you can
the other
do.
thing
Right.
is,
Right.
sometimes the only way to really be sure is, you know, go to a parts system and see which side the stupid steering wheel or the column is on. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah, but they may have changed the figure.
yeah,
But not change
not the
the verbiage.
terminology, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Alan in Australia says at least you guys have a lot more access to information and software for your vehicles. We have very limited access unless it's a vehicle like Ford, which is global. My IDS subscription is through Ford US. There's no way we have that access through any manufacturer in Australia.
I wish you
Yeah.
did, guys. We had a fight over this in the 90s.
Yes, big time.
And it was a big thing, and we were fortunate that as much became available as has. And one of the reasons Jerry said that stuff he said about the Right to Repair Act is we are concerned, some of us in the industry are concerned, I am, that if push comes to shove and a law like this is passed, it's going to actually force the manufacturers to retrench and give us the letter of the law, which will be less than we're getting now.
And that's scary.
And it could be bad.
And Alan, believe me, our hearts go out to you. We know how tough it is to fix cars.
They were trying to put us out of business in the 90s.
Yeah, so, you know, hats off to Ford for doing global. Toyota, I know, is working on stuff like that. Canada's our neighbors right in Canada. It's like an extension
they
of
don't,
the US.
They don't have the information like we do.
Yeah, they're still fighting, and they find out if it's a US IP. Give an example. I asked Toyota before I had to go teach the Marines in Okinawa, Japan, if my Toyota tech stream would work there, and they said, no, you have no access in Japan. We will not allow that. Well, lucky, our US Marines have a US IP. It worked flawless. Like
Their
I was right
internet
back
probably
here.
went through a U.S. satellite someplace.
Apparently.
It was
worked
sovereign
flawless.
U.S. territory in
Sovereign
Japan.
U.S. territory.
So, you know, maybe you could get some US base down there.
Yeah, use their IP.
And use their IP. You know, go speak to them, the US Embassy.
The problem for you is that still won't work because the cars are physically different.
Yeah, they're different.
Right, the calibrations and whatnot.
And so
Oh, but you know what? Those cars were different. Those Priuses and there were other cars
but
that
you
I
still
worked
had
on.
access to the information.
I had full access to Hinos and all that. Everything worked. They had a Hino hybrid truck.
You need to get
Like,
a
there's
link
no
to
way.
a US IP.
So I would at least look into that. Don't know if it'll work on everything, but Toyota did there.
Rich, who is liking Identifix, says, of course, you still test, but the
Good man.
OE info has specs and good wiring diagrams.
Very
Yes,
good.
that's
Very good. Yeah, it's impressive.
Yeah, I've seen
Back on that Hyundai, it says you may find you think the seat side airbag is not the problem, but they really are saying the airbag in the horn pad, but they say driver's side airbag or vice versa.
Oh, so it's got to be the terminology,
It's gotta be-
Rick.
yeah.
Their documentation is.
Thank you
Right.
for any info. You know, these things are all archived, as you guys know. I mean, you can always view them. And this information, anything you guys give us back or feedback is important because someone can go look at it later on and figure something out. So we
Just-
appreciate
I've
it.
been saying this for years. Engineers make a mistake once and we have to fix it 1,000 times. and that issue with the documentation is like that.
Yeah, what they're not saying in that, they're not saying horn pad airbag and passenger. They're
Right.
saying driver's side and passenger
Right.
side,
Oh.
and they're mixing them.
They're mixing them up.
Maybe right before the P0420, because we talked about this before, fixed diagnostic charge versus real diagnostic charge time. How do we charge for diagnostics?
Sell it.
My
You have to sell
opinion,
it.
yeah.
Do you sell it
should
like
do it
1 hour, 2 hours?
It
What if you go more than 2 hours?
It,
Well,
it depends on what kind of a problem you have.
And your equipment.
Correct.
And if you have what looks like a standard type of problem, you could probably sell a canned amount of time, and if you spend over that, it's on you because that's all you've sold. However, if you get a car that's extremely screwed up, like the car I just bought that we were talking about, if you were selling that, the way I always handled that with customers was I just said, look, what's your threshold of pain? I'm gonna document everything, I'm gonna work diligently, I'm gonna write it all down, and I'm gonna diagnose everything I can. How much time are you gonna pay me for it? And where do I stop? Do I stop at the end? Do I stop at $700, $1,000, whatever it is? I'm gonna write everything down, nothing's gonna have to be tested twice.
Well, here's what I did. I had 193 diagnostic fee. And back then it was the big box scope. I used the Bear machine. I used my Fluke lab scope or my Tech 222. And I used the gas analyzer, the whole bit. Now, what I did in that hour or so time, you had about 15 minutes with the customer. And because I had the right equipment, I was able to diagnose their complete system from the battery, the charging, to everything, mechanical. And then what I would tell them, that's what they paid me for. I found the problem in your fuel system area. I'm gonna need another hour. Not fixing the car, but now I'm gonna pinpoint, is it a voltage drop at the fuel pump? Is it a bad fuel pump? Is it a clogged filter? Is it a bad inject? Whatever.
So you charge $193 to find out what direction to go to, and another essentially $100,
$93 after that. That was my
So-
rate at the time.
$300 for a diagnostic.
No, yes, about 300. And
God bless you.
People, here's how I sold it.
But they wanted to know the real answer. They
Watch.
didn't want to be throwing 72 parts at it and still not know the answer.
Up here.
Maybe I'm fixing cars too cheap. Thanks.
Well, here's what I would do, Craig. This was the deal I made the customer. The 193 was a lot of money.
Uh-huh.
And back then, and you're going back 10, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
But here's what I told them. If I can't diagnose it, you owe me nothing.
In other words, if
And
what he
that sold
diagnosed didn't fix the car afterwards, they didn't have to pay for the diagnosis.
Exactly. I told them I'd fix it for free. Now, over the years, we all know cars are screwed up. Have I had to loan my car to a couple of customers because their car was a cluster from 3, 4 different repair shops? It's like 3, 4 different chefs cooking something? Yeah, and you pull your hair out.
And
you know
maybe
what?
a couple of them aren't dealing with a full deck.
And I lost money on that because maybe they only went in for $300, $400. And they weren't gonna pay me a dime more. And I go, you know what? That's all you owe me. Because I said I'd fix this car for that price.
Yeah, that's why I try not to ever name a price, because then you get screwed with the expectation. The
It's tough getting
It's-
I
I mean-
some of that has to do with reading what kind of a problem you have. If a customer, if a vehicle is a car you regularly service and you have a baseline on, I think you can usually know about what kind of labor it's going to take you to diagnose that.
And we didn't have
Whereas
Identifix back then.
if it's a car that's bounced through 7 shops and, you know, has 3 different color paint schemes, different body panels, and is listing on one side, or my father used to say is about to capsize, everything was nautical with him, then I would say at that point you have to tell them that it's time and materials, that there's no way to give them a quote up front to diagnose it, because there's almost undoubtedly multiple problems. You're not, and sometimes these things are related, so you can't diagnose one problem and say that's going to fix the car. You know, I like to make the analogy, somebody comes into a doctor and has high blood pressure, a heart condition, circulatory problems, and, you know, ulcers, and, you know, oh, I only want to fix one of those. Well,
Can't be done.
you're still going to die.
That's what I tell them. Have a nice day. You know, you got to be very specific in your diagnosis of what it's going to do. My diagnosis is going to check this particular problem.
Right.
It's because they ask, I'll go through my maybe bad but maybe good scheme how I do it. For a heater circuit problem, I charge a half hour, and that really is just me checking ohms. That's it.
Oh, for an oxygen heater?
Yeah, for oxygen heater circuit. All of the things are an hour, and it's written in the invoice that you give me permission to go 2 hours if I need to without asking you.
So they've authorized 2
Then,
hours
because at that
basically
point,
upfront.
in 2 hours, I'm gonna find something I need to fix before going somewhere else. Most likely. I mean, unless I'm having, me or Alex having a really awful day. I mean, really stupid. So, to make a long story short, by then you sold the repair, but you have to tell them, this is what I found out, this is what I don't know. Now, you could pay me to find out more stuff, or
Well, let's see what
you
you
could
want.
fix
Or we
this
can fix
other
what we
thing
know about,
first.
see what if anything else
And,
is left over.
and so, again, a gradualistic process.
Yeah, now the other thing that I always like to do, and we as an industry don't do it well enough, I don't think, is when it comes to things like OBD2 repairs, you have to tell the customers that monitors can be halted by some enabling criteria that's not meant because of a problem over here.
Because of a
And-
battery, because of whatever, who knows?
And so they have to be made aware that even though you diagnose successfully and repair successfully a problem, there may be something that never was visible before, the monitor never ran,
Because you have to fix this problem
because you
first.
gotta fix that first, and they have to know that every time.
Yep.
How about diagnosing intermittent problems now? How do you
That's
charge for those
tougher.
problems that waste all your damn time?
That's tough, that's tough.
Before we go on with that real soon.
Well, that was a question posed by the audience, so you know.
Oh, well,
With your heater circuit, rather than doing ohms, I would be checking amps. I'd throw my amp clamp around one of the 2 power wire, the power in the ground going there, and that gives you real quick, especially with scan tools nowadays, you can even turn the heaters on a lot of these. And
In-
heaters stay on.
In 2.5
Duty
years,
cycle.
every single heater, oxygen sensor heater circuit Coda ever had in 2.5 years was an oxygen sensor. Every single one of those was diagnosed.
and they're
using-
virtually all open circuit.
Yes, using ohms. The one that didn't was a computer.
Right.
And that's what I always tell a customer, listen, you know, I'm going to do this, and if it's not, you got to pay me for my
If it
time.
works for you, that's
Yeah.
good.
I'm just saying, every single one.
On heater.
Okay, we gotta get on to
We
Neil's
gotta do
question.
Neil's, but we'll go back to that intermittent,
Yes,
before we're done.
let's put that as next. Go ahead, Neil.
Alright, so I got a
Front.
2003 Honda Accord with a 4-cylinder that came in with a PO 420. Tested the cat, the O2 sensors were working, front and rear. The cat was bad, so the customer didn't want to spend a lot of money, so I got an aftermarket cat.
Where's the holy water? Right
Okay, there's your problem.
now? Where's the holy water? Now that's letting the customer dictate.
Yeah,
Like
that's.
the doctor, oh, no, don't use that sharp scalpel on me.
I want to use the old one.
The rusty one.
15,000 miles,
I don't care.
How many thousand miles?
115.
It's a
What was
baby.
what was the long-term fuel term?
That's the first thing you should have looked at. See,
Okay.
now, trending when a P0420 happens, who killed the cat? The catalytic converter, first of all, when it's new, the rhodium, the platinum plating, the whole substrate is so much better on an OE compared to those aftermarket pieces of junk. And not all aftermarket pieces of junk.
Well,
They tell
the reason
you
why I'm saying this is
something like
not
Walker.
make the same mistake.
Something like Walker, who makes some OEs, I'll just use this as an example, because I know that for a fact. You're gonna pay more for that cat than a cheaper one.
But
Because
it's like
it
an OE.
has an OE, the same amount of precious metal in there.
Just think of the junkyard guy. If you have a used converter, it had a P0420, here's 80 bucks. I had a brand new aftermarket one, never even went in a car, got $10 for it. What's that tell you about how much precious metals?
There's no precious
Yeah, but
metal.
it's a Euro car and they give you $200. That tells you how much is in that.
And so, Neil,
That's right.
when you diagnose a P0420, first of all, you're going to be very careful. Hondas, Subarus, some Toyotas, they are so close to the line of passing or failing. I'd look at mode 6 data, that's number one. And if I see this thing going over the edge, what's causing it over the edge? Like Craig said, fuel trunk. I'm looking for something. I'm looking if it's a speed density system, where's that map sensor at? Where's my basic engine stuff? And how many people nowadays we've seen, do not adjust the valves on a Honda?
This is why you have to be
then
logged
when you-
into the
and
big
after you
event
do,
next
'cause
weekend,
it's-
so you can see Jerry do this whole thing.
And after you adjust, yes, please pay for a big event and you'll get more info. If you adjust valves on a Honda, by the time you've done it, it has a nice tapping noise the rest of its life.
Well, that's because they've never, ever adjusted the valves. Now, when you adjust those valves to the manufacturer spec, if these things have been out of whack for a long time and you touch something,
They're hammered.
they're hammered a bit. It's going to make some noisy noise, but that'll get you past a lot of inspections and cut down on 420s.
I mean, thank God, because who knows, they'll keep continuing. But I've never had to come back with a catalytic converter. But that's because if there's a fuel term issue, a cat's not put in there until that's fixed.
That's right.
That's right.
Every single time. And
Very, very
Well,
good.
Same with any kind
and-
of ignition issues, same with all of that.
I always use a dealer cat.
Right.
And I always tell the customer, listen, I'll put the cheaper one if you want, but I don't warranty it. And that's it.
Right.
That's it.
I agree with you completely on that, Craig. We've never had one come back when we've put the OE cat in.
But when you put the cheapies in,
Honda got smoked on a Honda,
you will. Toyotas
Customer
will
got,
tell you.
we didn't, customer.
BMW, you're
themselves
dead
got
with an
burnt-
aftermarket.
Got burned on an Audi.
Or
Audi
the-
will definitely
an
get
Audi.
cooked.
Or they
Audi and
last,
Volkswagen?
Yeah.
or the
Yeah.
aftermarket ones
I don't know
last
which
only a
ones they
year or
were
so.
for, and I can't say about the new Walkers and I mean, it
Well, you gotta
wasn't,
be careful. That's
wasn't the cheap. I have not, but I'm not, we don't wanna gamble again. They
Well,
always tell you.
how about the
If it's
lingo?
CARB certified, for OBD2.
OBD2 carb certified.
You're okay. And it's a reputable company, not some, here's the problem we have in this industry now. They're putting stickers on a lot of these things that says it is. Every catalytic converter has to have a special stamping number on the bottom of the cap, stamped right in.
It's
Those stamping numbers are very important to see what and who made that cap.
I've noticed there's a lot of hype where the California certified ones tend to be better, but they're hard to get. You don't see a lot of them.
Yeah, I tried to find out if there was one that was certified in all 50
Yeah.
states. It's
almost-
certified in 50 states, except they won't sell it in California.
Then you know it's bull
And
crap.
it's no good.
Then you know it's
Exactly.
bull crap.
That's
First of all, we're on California emission standards here as well as Massachusetts.
Yes, New
and other
Jersey,
states.
Connecticut, most of the Northeast are California emission states.
But here's the
So
problem.
You have to have that standard matter.
It's how they sell this thing. And your parts stores, you know why they don't want to do it? They want to sell the cheap ones, they can sell more of them. They're telling you, there's some of these guys telling you, put this little part in to fake the system out or whatever, that's bullcrap.
They have oxy
Do the
sensor
job right.
spacers and all kinds of stupid
Pierre,
tricks.
ixnay, don't let that out.
Sorry. Well, they're no good. They're bad. They're
It's
cheap.
garbage. It's just the part stores are some of the problem.
No, I
They
had
won't do it.
a salesman,
You
the
won't
biggest
find good
parts
stuff.
store in town, come in here and say, "There's shops bigger and better than yours that can't fix the cat."
Maybe they need some training.
I told him he should go to my dad's class.
Yeah.
Bottom line for me, I'm biased. I say use an OE cat. Make sure the thing is running clean. It has a good ignition system, good injection, good fuel delivery, good all of that. It's mechanically good. And you won't have any comebacks on cats.
Well, you know the problem? For years, we had tailpipe testing, right? Tailpipe testing, what did they do? If you were close to failing, they threw an aftermarket cat on at the parts store, made a lot of money on.
And you'd pass
You
1 year.
pass through, now you got the you suck light. The you suck light comes on, the check engine light, because you suck, you didn't fix their car, and the customer's gonna come back pissed off at you. You need to diagnose it right. What killed the cat? Is it something with a sensor out of whack, right?
Yep.
Is it an issue because you got a badass vacuum leak? Do you have high fuel pressure? Is your fuel trim out of crazy whack?
Exhaust leak.
There's gotta be something. Exhaust leaks are
Crud in
bad.
the injectors. Injectors that are spraying, streams instead of spray.
Yeah, like the launch machine there, when you put some in there, it's like unbelievable to see.
Yeah, if
the
it's
difference,
pissing a
right?
stream, it isn't gonna be,
Especially
that cat's
leaking
gonna be breathing like crazy.
Fuel properly.
Yeah.
the.
What other questions do we have? Or I think Rich was gonna say something.
I have a fun one.
Oh, sure.
Are you guys finding that it's harder to sell quality parts? Everyone wants the cheapest piece of junk part that's out there.
The answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, then have warranty.
And the parts will come with a warranty.
In Auto Pro, whatever, AutoZone, when you have those kind of guys around, yeah, it makes it harder.
But they sell now on behalf of
Advanced does, not AutoZone.
Advanced. I did some training classes for a major company that they sell some of their parts in OE part. Okay, I'll say the name, Denso. Great part, right? Look how much stuff is in BMW Denso.
Right.
And Worldpac sells and stuff.
Everything
They got
Asian
some
car.
good stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes better than your blue guys down the road or whatever, you know, without mentioning a name. So I think it depends, and I haven't been in an AutoZone in a
Well,
while.
AutoZone is the one where I mean, not that
We got one
I don't have a
opening up
lot
down
of-
the road now.
I don't have a lot of customers that do that, but I have a couple of customers where they went to go price stuff out. I'm like, well, if you want that kind of stuff in there, it's cheaper than I can pay for it from my regular parts store that I get
My
more
stuff.
better quality stuff.
I just say, look, it's not the same. Without totally putting them down,
Yeah, it's
I
not the
just
same
say,
quality.
my motto was always factory quality or better. And it's not the same.
By the way, here's a good example. The Chevron Techron comes in 2 bottles. You can pay one $15 and the other one's like $7. There's the difference in concentration.
Of course.
The professional stuff is gonna be the 15 or so dollars, like
Right.
the Run Right Sledgehammer, the
It's
same
true.
stuff. You know, the cheaper stuff is diluted.
Got alcohol in it or
And you gotta
whatever.
tell them, say, look, it's not the same. You
It's
want,
made for retail.
right, made for retail, because they know how retail people are.
The
It's like air
Per-
filters.
personally, I find it easy to sell better parts.
Yeah, Chris.
I'm not showing off. Like I really do, because it's a racist approach to
Maybe you
auto
should-
repair.
Maybe you should do
Hear me
a
out.
class on how to sell parts.
Racist approach to auto repair, because I go, okay, you want the Chinese part, $30, or the Chinese brake pads, $50, or American, $110, $60 difference. Okay, I'll do the American. Okay, do you want the Chinese rotors, $45 each? You want the made in Japan rotors, $90, $45 difference times. Then before you know it, they're paying like $200 more for the job, but that job will never come back.
It's
Right, it won't
better
give them
quality.
trouble, right?
And then you go, okay, I'll put the Chinese one in, but I'm not going to warranty the job. And they'll always buy the more
They want
expensive
the
part.
warranty. They want you to stand behind your work.
It's
Look at the
I just don't have
Timken
problems with
bearing.
it.
Timken bearings. If
Yeah.
you want something good, you're gonna buy a Timken bearing. It's a good bearing.
Good bearing, right?
All right, you want one of these no-name, made in China piece of junk, it's not gonna last as long.
But
And
ISO certified.
Unfortunately, the parts stores, what they're doing
They're going
is
for the
they're
money.
buying the cheapest junk and selling it, and we're
And this
putting
isn't universal, by the way. I mean, you can still get good stuff, but you have to be very careful.
Very careful.
Joel-
Even Whirlpack that has some great parts. I mean, they got a lot of OE, but you better be careful if it's OE or OES.
You gotta
or-
watch this, yeah, you gotta watch the sources.
Joel's saying, should you be held accountable for the cheap decisions the customer chooses? I say, heck no.
No.
No way.
No,
No
absolutely.
way. It's not my problem.
You know what?
Hang
Mitch
on.
Schneider, you know Mitch Schneider? He had some seminar a long time ago that I went to, and I think this philosophy is perfect. Customer comes in, he's got a monkey on his back. He wants to put the monkey on your back. Don't let him. It's his monkey.
Well,
It's his decision. It's his problem. He has to know it up front.
you know, as I
But
was
we're getting away from doing Neil's the final answer on that, though.
Well, I think Neil was just trying to make a point.
Well, no, I mean, I
I
actually,
think,
I went to put another cat in it because, but the second cat actually lasted longer than the other cat. But I also did put, the oxygen sensors, one was not working, they had 114,000 miles, so I said, you know, I'm gonna change these.
it was real lazy, real slow.
Yeah, so I said, let me change those too. And I did an update, I went to the Honda dealer, I had them do it, and they also did I also did for the guy, a wiper recall. The guy didn't charge me, and instead of the guy thanking me, the guy did a total reverse and like, but you didn't call me to tell me if it was okay to go do the
You didn't want to spend the money.
on the catalytic converter. I'm like, wait, I just saved you time. I did an executive decision because you've been my customer for a long time. I went there, had it done, and on top of it, I had another recall, another thing done for you that you didn't have to
This
go.
is- this is
go to
the
do it.
problem with
And
selling
this is the
stuff
thanks
to
I
people.
get.
Yeah, I know.
I reamed him a new,
Well,
you know
that's
what?
good that you did that, because sometimes you need to be assertive with these customers. And the
Yeah.
same thing when it comes to putting these parts in a car. I would tell people, and again, this is when I turned into a Pierre running the shop myself at that point. And when I ran the
And the
shop by
labor rate was real
myself,
high.
I really took in only the jobs I wanted to take in and make the money I want. If someone came in and started dictating to me, I said, no, 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 no.
Goodbye.
You can bring your car somewhere else. I'm the professional. I will decide what's best for your car.
Well, I mean,
If
that's
something's
what I'm
wrong,
doing
I
now,
am
yeah.
gonna warrant it.
Now, you know, the other thing is, sometimes, you know, you have to decide as a businessman,
Yeah, what's
even
the
though
headache?
times may be tough, you have to say, no, I can't do a job. And I remember one guy years ago, it was a car I had never seen before. It was a 750 BMW with a lot of miles on it. It was a V12, a lot of issues. He brought the car to me and he wanted to fix everything. And I opened the hood. I never even brought the car in the shop. I was just talking to him. I opened the hood and I said, I can't fix your car. I can see $20,000 worth of work on this car without testing anything, and the car's worth 12. I'm not going to get into this.
Well,
And he got really mad at me. But the people he told, who were my customers, they all thought it was the right move.
You're
Because
honest.
I was honest, and I wasn't going to rope the guy in to spending a lot of money on something that wasn't worth it. I told him to go buy a new car.
Pierre, take a peek at this. This is a typical customer that I would have threw out on his ears. This
Maybe the people.
This car came in,
Ooh.
and Craig, I don't know if you can zoom on that. Don't get my big nose in the picture. It's bigger than
It
this.
looks like battery terminals.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Very ugly. It's got
Oh,
fuzz.
is that
Oh,
that the
God,
Toyota or the
is that
Nissan?
battery turbo?
That's the Toyota.
Oh yeah, that
And
guy's
I
crazy.
said to Craig, what do you mean this guy doesn't want to fix this? This guy,
That's the first thing you have to fix.
he'd be out on his ear. The first thing, this guy can't be my
You can't-
customer.
you
if
can't
it's like
fix
that.
He still spent $2,700 with me. Give me a break.
Tell them what happened. The guy told him, Craig said, hey, I want to do, you know, I want to clean up the battery. Guy told him not to do it, but you know the link on the fusible link? On,
It blew?
corroded. It was all corroded. So then he was forced to do it.
But people say I don't want to do those little things.
You're out.
I said it to them. I'm gonna say it again. This is something that you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, I'm going. This
Right.
if you want to be my. This is what we have to do.
Then he said,
Now, I didn't do it that
well,
way.
go ahead and do it, but I'm not paying for it.
No, it's
You know what
I-
I didn't work it that way. I told my customers when they came in with something like that, I said, this is the first thing I have to do or I cannot do anything else.
That's the most important part of the car.
That's
Yeah.
the first thing that has to be
That's
done.
it.
I'm not going to go further.
Yeah.
And
You're learning, Craig. Young man.
I made money. I was happy.
Thoughts. I mean, really, you can't have the customer, I know things are tight out there, but you
Yeah.
can't have the customer dictate
No.
stuff to you when you're the professional. And you know what? They'll be the first one to tell you that, badmouth you and say, you didn't tell me to do
They
that.
take you to task, and they're also the first ones to sue you when something isn't right.
Exactly.
So
It's,
you
you know,
forget about it.
Ah, drives me
just
nuts.
to
I'm
relate
sorry,
to
guys.
just to
It's
relate to
great.
what Rich told me earlier today. He was saying like he's going to some shops in New Jersey and they're throwing darts, the dartboard, the playing cards, and you know
Perfecto.
what? It's hard for a shop that's really hurting, and this cheapo comes
turn
in.
down something,
You know,
right?
brake pads from AutoZone. How much will you charge me to put it on? And you have guys doing nothing. So that's where it's desperation, where guys get roped
I
in.
understand
Yeah, but that
You-
ruins
you-
the whole
you're very
business, doesn't
smart.
it?
But
It does
yeah.
ruin the whole business.
It
Because
does.
what's going to happen when things get better? People are still going to want the cheap prices.
And when those brakes squeak for the next 25, 30,000 miles, they're going to be bad-mouthing your shop the whole time.
So, Rich had something to say about
Right.
cheapy fuses or something, right? So,
Yeah.
Rich, why don't you take that on real quick?
Because we're still talking about cheap stuff.
Yes, cheap stuff.
Junk.
All right?
Junk.
And a lot of shops out there that I'm finding, because basically all I'm doing is electrical diagnostics. All right?
He's the guy that John Anello hires when John can't do it.
And, well,
Or won't do it.
one of the biggest things,
Yeah, it's not enough
that's
money.
it, when he just doesn't want to do it. All right? But nevertheless,
Want to.
these, a lot of shops are out there from either their wagon jobbers or whatever, they're buying the cheapest fuse available. All right? And fuses are inexpensive to begin with. All right? But they're buying something that's absolutely horrible. These things, they don't have the right thickness to the tabs and they're loose. Or, worse than that, all right, what, you're only replacing a fuse if it blows. And some of these fuses,
They won't blow.
they won't
They'll
blow.
never blow.
They're going to steal bars.
Lifetime warranty.
Unblowable fuse.
I've actually had out there where someone was blowing a maxi fuse under the hood of the car. All right, all the maxi fuse did was feed 3 15-amp fuses
Ooh.
inside the car. All right,
Ooh.
I found that the short in the system that was blowing the 30-amp fuse, it was a 30-amp maxi fuse, was going through the 15-amp fuses in the car.
It never blew.
That never blew.
They had the special high-low quality.
The special high-low quality
Special
fuses.
unblowable fuses.
All right, and when I pulled the 15-amp fuse out, all right, the short went away. It was on the 15-amp circuit and was blowing the 30-amp not circuit breaker, maxi fuse under the hood.
And that's pretty
all
hard to
right?
do.
And that is hard to do.
And that fuse, when I looked at the fuse link part inside,
It's a bar, right?
It wasn't a bar. It actually had a curve to it. All right, and it looked like the typical curve. But if you turned it so that endwise, and you looked at the thickness of
It was like that.
it was as thick as anything. All right, so I
Well,
mean,
maybe that's what they're going to do. They're going to burn
Leftover
America
metal
down.
they had. It was the right,
That's what
fit
they
it.
have.
They figured that if they could blow at a lower amperage and not at a higher one.
can you imagine if a customer, a retail customer, or never mind a retail customer, you throw a fuse in that car, all right, and that fuse is the only fuse that protects that system, all right, and the
You're
wiring burns up due
And
to
it
that.
and it burns the car up.
Yeah,
Think of your liability.
absolutely.
Well, that's why you can't buy these cheap fuses.
I don't think it's a good idea to buy second-rate parts. It's
No.
just, it's just something waiting to bite you.
And you know, to the credit of WorldPack or Advance, like Advance Auto, you could get a Moog. You know, from
Great part.
WorldPack, you could get a Timken, and if you want
Great
to,
part.
and you could also
And
get
you
a
can
cheap
buy
one
the cheap
too.
ones if you want as well.
Yep,
Same
and
with filters. Look at all the garbage
Right.
oil filters
Yeah, yeah,
that are
yeah.
out there.
And you have to specify the good ones if you want to do that quality work. Otherwise, you really either have to not warranty what you do, or you have to let everybody know that they're buying cheap stuff. Otherwise, it's on you.
I mean, you know, even air filters, you know, cheap air filters, you know, a hole forms through them, and then you mess up
Cheap
mess
air
up with
filter,
mass
expensive
airflow.
mass air sensor.
Yeah.
You have something to say,
Yeah,
Mr.
no, I
Mayor?
just wanted to ask Neil, so I don't know if I heard the end. After the reflash on your Honda, and after,
The cat is still bad, and
well, I mean, it didn't bring it back to life, but we don't know with those two fixes if we started.
If it's gonna go
with
bad
with
again.
another new one, would it last or not? We don't know that at this
another new
aftermarket of some
No,
kind. We don't know,
factory
but we
cat.
don't. Well, no, we know with a factory it should be fine.
But unless there's something going on in the fuel
That's-
system.
That's it.
You gotta know where fuel trim is at.
Right, but I mean, if
everything's good.
I
and
tell
now
you,
with the Flash done, we
We
really
still don't know if the aftermarket
market
would
would
work.
make it or not.
That's the whole point. You
Right.
can't win that game.
Right, why do we want
Oh,
it?
Well, I know this.
I had to refresh, I'm thinking that it's because things have been worn down, I figured
Right,
that
but
would
I
take
mean-
care. That's the mentality that I had.
I know this on Nissans because the customer I had, you put an aftermarket cat in it. The Reflash did fix it, so I bet for the Nissans, I bet you could get away with the aftermarket if you have the Reflash.
well, some of them, Nissan had a big campaign. And those cars, you probably could get away with some of them because they make it go out so far, they don't want to see them back.
yeah,
It's almost like a
Exactly.
cheating game.
Well, let me answer, excuse me.
You gotta wonder how they pass their OBD.
By the way-
With a $150
Yeah.
port charge.
Yeah.
Now, I
So you're looking
bet,
at $1,050, which is insane.
Craig, next time you do one of those cars, before you reflash
you mean
it,
a Nissan?
a Nissan, go into mode 6, look at the parameters.
How
tells you
close it
min and
is?
Max, guaranteed after you flashed it,
It's different.
it's different. They went like this in the window rather than being like this.
How are they allowed to not change in the federal test?
EPA, does the
Of
car
allowing
get,
them?
They get fined
No. Does
sometimes.
the car ever get retested? Only if enough people complain will they do a recall on enough of those cars to get them in and run them for another FTP.
Oh, so once they're through that,
How-
the games, I mean, I
How
understand
they
that,
got
right?
nailed that time, $17 million because they never put the check
Why not-
engine light on?
Right.
And guess what? Their computers weren't reflashable. They said, we can't change all these computers, they're too expensive. Well, you'll bring the car in and tune them up, do a valve
Oh, right,
adjustment.
that's where they.
And they
have
covered
right
them up to
flash.
$150,000
That's
or
right.
something.
That's what that was all about.
It was a big number.
And you know what that was?
Free.
Us aftermarket guys lost the
Hammered 'em.
biggest chunk of money because when those cars went back to the dealer for all that free
Oh,
stuff,
yeah.
oh, Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith, you know, well, your car was in here and you need brakes and we're giving you like $500.
Or better yet, they were trading them into a new car.
Exactly.
The
So we gotta be careful in this industry. We need to stay
Work
together,
together.
work together, and use the right stuff. You know, it's almost like boycott. First of all, our country is hurting, and, you know, there's stuff from China, these people are not even getting paid well. I was just reading in the Wall Street
And
Journal.
quality control isn't even in their vocabulary.
We're giving our wealth away, and we're giving our jobs away. Buy something that's made here if it costs you a few bucks more, or made in Canada, or Australia, or England, or Germany. You know that stuff is good. In all honesty, right? You get German rotors, the rotors are good. The rotors made in Italy, right? Remember when we did the Pro?
No, Palangas are terrible. And they're made in Italy. And every set I've had are warped.
But not the ones the Napa's used made in Italy. Those were good.
Yeah, but I haven't seen Napa rotors made in Italy in 2 years.
Oh, okay. When I
But-
looked at them last time.
For what it's
But most of these countries that are known for some sort of quality,
Mhm.
you can kind of depend on that. When you're getting things in,
That's my racist
you know,
theory of auto parts.
cheap stuff, Thailand, you know, Vietnam, or whatever, they're pushing stuff out.
Here's the bottom line. Any one of these places where their manufacturing base is young, relatively speaking, where they're paying their people virtually no money and they really don't have a lot of native skills,
How good could it be?
and they're buying
The cheapest raw
the
materials.
cheapest
raw
materials, or
they can get.
recycling stuff not very well, you know, you're set up for a disaster. You may not have a
Well, you pay
disaster
for it.
every time, but you are absolutely set up for it.
Right before we go, one of our TST members, his wife had a high exhaust back pressure because the cat was clogged, and he just had to get her home because, you know, you never fix your own family car, right? And he plugged a hole in it. That's why I'm not saying his name. That car never threw a 420.
He put a hole in the cat.
He just knocked out the substrate, you know. He just,
Oh, just bad.
Oh, he
Yeah.
took it out.
yeah, he just, you know. And so
Well,
the
depending
software
on
in that
the-
car,
Well,
according to the software, that car is filtering all that exhaust just fine.
Well, you know, here's one of the funny ones, right? You know,
Jeez.
before a cat monitor can run, okay, right? Before a cat monitor can run, the O2 heater has to run, the O2 sensor has to run, because
Right.
that's what's gonna measure it,
Both
right?
Not on all,
O2s.
not on all vehicles.
Well, how did Ford make the catalyst monitor run before that? You know why? In their software, they were never checking on that. That's what happens. When you see that, you can't test that catalytic converter unless those other things are looking for it, right?
Right.
And that's why if your O2 is bad, and even threw a code for an O2, how the hell are you gonna see if the cat is working
You'll
on it?
never know.
Right.
That's what I was talking about before.
That's
Enabling
all this
criteria and
stuff,
stuff.
tricky stuff they typed in and they
Play with the software.
played with the
Yeah.
software.
Yeah.
But anyway, coming up, you know, it's time for us to go. And thank you guys from Australia. I know
wanna go
it's
home.
a big time difference, to say the least.
Yeah.
Different day in the world.
Yes.
At any rate,
It's morning.
hopefully-
It's tomorrow.
hopefully we answered all your questions. We like more participation on your end. We do apologize about Drewtech, but Drewtech did tell me they will come on for future ones. I think the next 2 months I'm working up in Massachusetts.
But we'll be here.
I won't be around. You won't hear me yak, so you'll hear these guys do some yakking, and we need you to yak. So I want to thank you for taking the time to look in at our webcast, and anytime you have any questions, please check us out. Coming up, March the 24th, $75 for the whole day. You can be on the webcast. This is the TST big event in Fishkill, New York. You can still come. We need to know if you wanted to come. But you can get on the web. You get all the handouts. You get a month to view it. You get our newsletter. And, well, it's almost like being there if you can't come out and make it. Also, we have a P10 webcast coming up, sponsored by Mac Tools, I believe, and
Identifix.
Identifix. I think that is next Tuesday or Wednesday night, so check in on that. And we'll see you here next time. Thanks again for your time.
All right, good night.